Yo, what's up guys? Old School Dan here, and in today's special video, I want to talk about training the Reg Park way. This video is about how Reg Park trained chest. Now, in this video, we got commentary by Jon Jon, which, if I'm not mistaken, is Reg Park's grandson. So Jon Jon Park. Now, it's a very interesting video because it's literally Reg Park's grandson explaining how Reg Park trained. You know, how he hit every muscle group. There's like a whole series on how he trained each muscle: calves, abs, chest, back, legs, all that stuff. It's incredible, and it's a lot of stuff that I taught already and stuff that I already knew. But I just wanted to hear it from another source, like someone actually who's blood of Reg Park. So let's dive right into it. It's basically Reg Park teaching this guy how Reg Park trained, and I'm gonna do a little bit of commentary here and there when he brings up very interesting points. So let's get started.
In the early days, Reg's initial chest exercise, the core movement of his chest, was incline barbell presses. And again, he used to employ the 5x5 principle. Of course, he'd include dumbbell flies and he'd do incline dumbbell presses. In the very early days, he'd do flat bench press. But for many, many years, he stopped doing that because he felt that it developed too much of the lower pec.
Now, this is very interesting because guys like Ben Strana, Steve Reeves, and Reg Park were not too much of a fan about the bench press because of the same reason. The fact that too much bench pressing would give you a heavy, dense, busty, watermelon, droopy look to your pectorals. That's why. Now, Ben Strana was pretty much the only one that was really against bench pressing because of that reason. But early on, Reg Park used the bench press, so did Steve Reeves, and then soon later on, everybody began to copy Steve Reeves of incline pressing because of the square chest look that it gave him, that he was renowned for. So a lot of people started doing bench pressing. But let me show you something. So someone like Steve Reeves had very interesting genetics because his chest is literally developed like no other. And I will show you exactly what I mean by that. Look at how square that chest is. Just now, you got someone like Jim Haslett. Look at his genetics. They're very incomparable to Steve Reeves because they're just two different genetics. But like I was talking about earlier, no matter how much incline pressing you do, this is I was talking about earlier, but this I want to bring up. No matter how much incline pressing you do, you won't receive the same look as Steve Reeves because of his genetics. You see. Because your insertions are just set in stone. Like I can never get a chest like Steve Reeves because I don't have those type of genetics. Like it's just perfect genetics, the perfect cleavage, perfect outer pectoral, everything, just incredible genetics. And then Jim Haslett has a little bit more of a gap in his pectorals, and he's a little bit more of a round look compared to Steve Reeves, where Steve Reeves has more of a square chest look. And those are all just genetics. That's something you can't really change because your insertions are just set in stone. But other than that, you can prioritize certain muscle groups to give you a certain look, but you can't really change your muscle insertions. Like, there's no way you could. Another point I want to bring up, it'd be like if you're born with a short bicep, you can't really lengthen it through preacher curls because that's just impossible. Your insertions are just set in stone. There's no such thing as making a muscle longer. So, anyways, let's go back to the video.
It's a very easy muscle part to develop, and not enough emphasis is placed on the upper pecs. And if your lower pecs are heavy, it actually throws the balance of the physique off. Okay, because your posture, it makes you look like you're stooping forward more. So he preferred to put more emphasis on the upper pectoral, which is a harder area to work, to give the pec line more balance and more of a square look, as opposed to that heavy sagging look. Yeah, barrel chest.
Right, exactly. He always was an advocate of everything inclined for me.
Yeah. Whether it be incline barbell, incline dumbbell.
There was I don't even remember him ever giving me a flat bench chest exercise.
And for many, many years, he never ever did flat bench press, although he was renowned to be very, very strong, and he was the second man in the world ever to bench press 500 pounds. Right. As a bodybuilder, not a powerlifter, the guy who was the world record holder was a guy called Doug Hepburn, right, who was a powerlifter, and he was weighing in around 270 or so in those days.
Right.
So he was, at least 30, 40 pounds heavier than Reg was.
Yeah, no, he was always, when everyone was doing bench press, I wasn't allowed to. So, and I'm thankful because it helped a lot. It was a good bit of knowledge that I include in everyone's workouts. I didn't even have a flat bench press in my workout studio for the first 7 years. And then all these football players came in and that's all they do is, I'm trying to change that, but you can't,
Yeah, it's ingrained in it.
You can't tell these guys.
So the one thing he'd always do is make sure that whether you're doing incline or barbell is that when you lie down, your eyes are always underneath the bar. So when you grab the bar and you put it back, you don't hit the rack.
Right.
And then from purely a comfort point of view, what he started doing is elevating the feet, which would take the pressure off his lower back.
Right. Which actually is so much better for you.
So deep breath in at the top, hold the breath, and he would, if you remember, Steve, he'd come right down like you are to the collarbones. In fact, he'd even have people taking the bar to underneath the chin. Yeah. So take a deep breath in at the top, hold the breath on the way down, exhale on the way up. Reg also had a preference, which is what I see you doing. He took a thumbless grip.
This is something I've never heard of Reg Park doing. This is something new that I just learned from Jon Jon. I think it's very interesting that he would say that taking a thumbless grip would emphasize more of the upper chest and take less work out of the forearm, which is something I've never heard before. But I don't know too much about it, so therefore I don't want to say it's true or false. But that's a very interesting point. That's sort of an old school technique that I could talk about later on in another video. That'd be pretty cool to bring up. But let's just keep watching for now. This is interesting.
With the thumb under the bar, which he felt would put more emphasis on the chest and disengage the forearm and wrist out of the movement. So put the pressure in the heel of the hand. And he would make people doing exactly as you are, Steve. It wasn't about weight. Pausing at the bottom to get the full stretch and almost starting from a dead position, which is much harder. So he wasn't using velocity just to move the bar. It was more technique. And he felt that the angle of the bench was more a comfort version than anything else. But he felt that you could, if you wanted to emphasize hitting your upper pecs, the angle of the bench was irrelevant. It's the way.
This is. I made a video about this a long time ago about how Jon Jon said that Reg Park the bench you were using didn't really matter whether it was incline, flat, or decline. And this is where Vince Gironda comes in. Vince Gironda said was against the bench pressing, but he was not against something called a neck press. Neck press is basically a flat bench press, but instead of bringing the bar down to your chest, you're bringing it down to the upper neck to emphasize your upper chest. The neck press is also known as the guillotine press today. And that's an interesting point that not only Reg Park would say that the positioning of your arms would emphasize a certain area of your chest, and whereas Vince Gironda basically said the same thing. So it's very cool to just it's cool that the dots are connecting. You got Vince Gironda here and Reg Park saying one thing here, and boom, they're just right on top of each other, which is incredible. I love it.
The movement, and he even demonstrated that you could work your upper pecs by lying on a decline, where your head is lower than your hips, which typically people say is for the lower pecs, but just by the elbow positioning. So in other words, if your elbow is higher up, it's more upper pec. You take it a little lower, it's more middle, and you take it all the way down as you would in conventional bench press, it's more lower pecs. So he would have people, like you say, doing a flat bench press and taking the bar down and then coming up in an arc action, which actually, if you really look at somebody doing a bench press or a squat, when they move the bar, it's not going straight up and down. It's moving in an arc. Like when you squat, you don't go straight up and down. It's actually dangerous. It puts a lot of stress on the joints. You're moving in an arc. That's why the Smith machine, where bars fixed and slides up and down, was used for convenience sake. But he wasn't a huge advocate of the Smith machine because he felt that it was not a natural movement. You're locked into a position and your body mechanics are not in a proper movement. He would use a Smith machine later on for training, perhaps to isolate a muscle when he had finished working a muscle group at the end.
It's just a safer way for people, I guess, on their own to do it. It works in, like you said, a single plane. none of the assister muscles are getting fired because it's a fixed bar. Whereas this has got all the shoulders are helping balance.
There's a lot of front deltoids involved. Yeah,
absolutely.
So that was an interesting video. We got tons of other videos coming your way, guys. With that being said, if you guys have any comments, please leave them in the comment section below. Hope you enjoyed this video. That being said, again, subscribe for more videos like this. Give this video a thumbs up. Thanks for watching. I'm Old School Dan. I am gone. Peace.